On this Wednesday night, Israelis assess the damage from Iran's unprecedented attack. What's left of schools and homes.
And when I see what's happened to everything, that makes you very sad.
How Israel might retaliate and how far Iran could go. Plus, mounting concerns about anti-Semitism in Canada. Sentencing day.
We're finally able to get some form of justice for my dad.
The punishment for the impaired driver who caused a deadly crash. Playing politics. What happens now that the federal Liberals have rejected a key bloc demand? And buzzing for near beer.
If you want to come and drink alcohol through beer, nobody will judge you.
Oktoberfest raises a pint to a sobering trend.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. As Israel weighs a military response to that missile barrage by Iran, the IDF is not letting up in its assault on Lebanon, and its troops are now fighting Hezbollah militants in deadly close combat. Today, Israel was burying its soldiers. 8 were killed in southern Lebanon, the first to die in this ground invasion. In the last 10 days, Israel has launched more than 3,500 strikes on Lebanon, leveling entire residential blocks and killing, according to the Lebanese government, at least 1,400 people, including civilians, but also Hezbollah's leader and senior members. Hezbollah keeps firing back. Israel says it launched at least 140 rockets today. And in Gaza, more devastation. The health ministry says at least 51 people were killed after 4 schools sheltering displaced people were hit. Israel claims Hamas was using them as command and control centers. Today, the UN Secretary General condemned Iran's attack, but said the tit-for-tat violence must stop.
It's high time to stop the sickening cycle of escalation after escalation that is leading the people of the Middle East straight over the cliff. Each escalation has served as a pretext for the next.
There is no sign of stopping right now. Jeff Semple is in Jerusalem and begins our reporting tonight. Jeff.
Donna, tonight is Rosh Hashanah, but this Jewish New Year is overshadowed by renewed fears of an escalating conflict.
The sun came up over Israel, revealing the scale of the damage after Tuesday night's unprecedented attack. Iran firing 181 powerful ballistic missiles. Israel says most were shot down, but not all. This Israeli elementary school suffered a direct hit. It was empty, except for a dance class that managed to scramble into the basement.
Me and my wife.
Elsewhere, this 83-year-old and his family also heard the sirens and rushed down to their bomb shelter.
We closed the door completely, and in the same moment, there was a big boom. All the building moved.
They emerged to find every window and door blown in. He says his Arab neighbors helped him to clean up, and politicians should take a lesson.
People between them are okay as friends, but leaders not. Leaders act by interest.
This community north of Tel Aviv was one of the hardest hit. 100 homes in this area were damaged and this building completely destroyed. Incredibly, no Israelis were killed or seriously injured.
Iran claims that was by design. Tehran says it solely targeted Israel's military infrastructure. Unverified video appears to show an airbase being hit. That school that was struck is located nearby. We do not want any war or bloodshed, said the Iranian president. We were left with no choice but to respond. If Israel decides to retaliate, then it will face harsher reactions. And it appears that's exactly what Israel plans to do.
The consequences Iran will face for their actions will be far greater than they could ever have imagined.
The Israeli prime minister met his security cabinet, reportedly considering a range of responses, including targeting Iran's oil rigs, air defense systems, or even its coveted nuclear program.
If there is a direct attack on the nuclear program, the damage will be limited, but then Iran again will have to retaliate or lose face, and then the escalation continues.
They have a right to respond, but they should respond in proportion.
The U.S., Canada, and other Western allies are calling for a proportionate response.
I think we're still in tit-for-tat mode. Iran felt compelled to act. Israel feels compelled to respond. I may be wrong, but I'm hopeful that it will end there and won't continue to escalate.
But at almost every opportunity of late, the Israeli Prime Minister has rebuffed calls to de-escalate. And Benjamin Netanyahu vowed in a televised address that Iran will pay for its attack. Donna?
Jeff Semple in Jerusalem tonight, thanks. Iran does not recognize Israel's right to exist, and for years it has funded and armed proxy forces such as Hezbollah in Lebanon to fight Israel. Yesterday's direct missile attack on Israel could be a sign that shadow war is moving into the daylight. Redmond Shannon looks at what Iran's religious leaders want and what its military is capable of.
State TV showing Iranians celebrating the missile salvo on Israel. Revenge for the killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah and the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh on Iranian soil. Gathering under images of a growing number of dead leaders. Iran's supreme leader says the escalating conflict is the fault of the West. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei says if Israel removed what he calls its evil from the region, wars would end. But a broader war is looking more likely.
I really cannot point to a single country that I can tell you for sure now will come to Iran's aid. I look at the Russians, they're going to stay out of this. I look at the Chinese, they're going to stay out of this.
This Iranian analyst says the Islamic Republic's balancing act of using proxies to attack Israel while avoiding a direct war is becoming harder to maintain.
War with Israel essentially means war with the United States. And that's one flashpoint the Iranian regime really is hoping to avoid.
Iran is much larger than Israel. It makes its own long-range missiles and drones, but its military budget is 2/5 of the Jewish state, and its economy is struggling under decades of sanctions.
There are many people who are discontent with the bad economy, but they are serious in defending their own country.
This analyst in Iran says social and economic issues take a back seat to national pride.
Iran is determined to react more strongly and harsher.
If escalation can't be stopped, Iran's resolve and unity will be put to the test. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Ahead of October 7th, Toronto police say they're increasing their presence outside both synagogues and mosques. In the past year, the number of hate crimes reported in Canada has gone up. Eric Sorensen looks at how the escalation in the Middle East is having an impact here in Canada.
Michael Gilmore regularly checks security at the Kilat Sharei Torah synagogue. He has to. The property has been vandalized 5 times just since April.
Every window in our building has been smashed with a hammer. This has felt different. This has felt more intense. I feel people are emboldened and empowered to be openly anti-Semitic in a way that they hadn't before.
With Rosh Hashanah, Jewish New Year celebrations beginning this evening, the anniversary of the Hamas attacks on Israel just days away, and after months of Israeli attacks in Gaza that have sparked clashes in Toronto and other cities, Toronto police are beefing up security, mostly around Jewish institutions, including mobile command posts and more vehicle and foot patrols.
While many different communities have been targeted, the greatest increase has been against the Jewish community.
The concern goes beyond protest and vandalism. Intelligence documents obtained by Global News warn of extremist attacks. In one memo from July, the government's Integrated Terrorism Assessment Center wrote, "A lone actor attack inspired by a range of ideological or religious extremism targeting Jewish interests in Canada is a realistic possibility." Last month, a man was arrested in Quebec, allegedly on his way to New York to conduct a mass shooting on a Jewish center.
We are working closely with our municipal, provincial, and federal partners and strengthened our intelligence gathering efforts and our ability to identify and mitigate potential risks.
Statistics Canada says hate crimes jumped 32% in 2023, but a disproportionate number were anti-Semitic. There were almost 4,800 police-reported hate crimes in Canada last year. The Jewish community reported 900 instances, close to 19% of the total, from a community that represents about 1% of the Canadian population.
What we as Jews in Toronto and in Canada are dealing with in the security situation, it's very unsettling right now.
Members of Toronto's Jewish community can feel the increase in anti-Semitism and say it will be a challenge for police to prevent the growing number of incidents of intimidation, vandalism, or worse. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
A drunk driver who caused a fatal crash when he drove the wrong way on Canada's busiest highway has been sentenced to 7 years in prison and been banned from driving for 14 years. In 2022, Shamar Gilks took off on the wrong side of Highway 401 in Pickering, Ontario, killing a 55-year-old man. A police cadet was also severely injured. Gilks was going about 138 kilometers an hour and with nearly twice the legal limit of alcohol in his blood. The victim's family says justice has been served.
The main thing is finally it's over. We're finally able to get some form of justice for my dad.
My dad lost his life forever, and he still gets to have a second chance, right? So I can't really say that I'm happy with it, but I'm still glad that these sentences are going upward.
The judge called Gilks' behavior exceedingly egregious. He said he showed an extreme disregard for motorists who were flashing their headlights at him. In Ottawa, there's a battle underway over whether to increase old age security payments to seniors, an idea put forward by the Bloc Québécois. With the Liberal minority reliant on support from the opposition, today's vote was another test for the Trudeau government. Mackenzie Gray looks at how it played out.
Monsieur Arsenault. Monsieur Cormier.
It's the latest headache for Justin Trudeau. 5 backbench Liberal MPs breaking ranks with the government.
Je déclare la motion adoptée.
Backing a bloc motion alongside Conservative and NDP MPs to call on the government to increase OAS payments, something the Liberals won't support.
We've increased housing support for seniors. We've increased the guaranteed income supplement.
And that's key, because despite passing in the House, the motion is non-binding and still needs the Liberals to implement it.
Why is there so many English people here?
Yves-François Blanchet getting more attention than usual because this is his key demand to continue to support Justin Trudeau. And if the Prime Minister doesn't change his position,
we will start as rapidly as next week to speak with other oppositions in order to get ready to go into an election.
The motion calls for a 10% increase to old age security payments for seniors 65 to 74, which would boost the benefit, already indexed to inflation, by a maximum of $72 a month. The government signaled it would be open to increasing other seniors' benefits, like the guaranteed income supplement, a non-starter for the bloc.
We said at the very beginning of this that this is our position, this is our demands, and it will not change.
Even without the bloc, the Liberals can still survive with support from the NDP. But there seems to be limited urgency from Jagmeet Singh to push his policy priorities of a price cap on groceries and help for renters.
We're in no current conversations with the Liberals. Based on every vote that comes before us, we will try to fight as hard as we can to get the most for people, but there are no negotiations or no conversations right now.
But at some point, talks will start between Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau, essentially sending Parliament back to where it's been for the past 2 years, Donna, with the Liberals cutting deals with the NDP to avoid an election.
Mackenzie in Ottawa, thanks. Critical questions for America's vice presidential candidates coming up. What stood out in their first and only debate? The U.S. President Joe Biden got a bird's-eye view of the aftermath of Hurricane Helene today. He toured Asheville, North Carolina, one of the communities hardest hit, and deployed 1,000 troops to help with recovery operations. Vice President Kamala Harris was in Georgia.
I am here in Augusta to thank all of the folks who are here on the ground doing this extraordinary work. These are very difficult times, and in a moment of crisis, I think that really does bring out the best of who we are.
At least 180 people died across 6 states, and hundreds more are still missing. The two candidates for U.S. Vice President faced each other last night in a debate, and unlike what we've become sadly accustomed to, they talked policy and even agreed with each other from time to time, even though they have radically different positions on things like the economy, abortion, and January 6th. As Jackson Prosco reports, it shows what can be achieved when former President Trump is not on the stage.
At times, it felt like a throwback to the pre-Trump era of politics.
Tim just said something that I agree with. I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said.
J.D. Vance and Tim Walz mostly kept it cordial and debated policies from the economy to the conflict in the Middle East.
A nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment.
To access to abortion.
My party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us.
If Walz seemed uncomfortable, Vance seemed overly confident until he was confronted with his own lies about immigrants in a small Ohio town who he claims are illegally in the U.S.
And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check.
Though Donald Trump wasn't on stage, he was rarely far from view. 90 minutes into the debate, Walz pressed Vance on the critical question: Trump's denial of his own loss in the last election.
I would just ask that: did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future.
That is a damning non-answer.
Polls showed those who watched were evenly divided on who won. Among independent and undecided voters, Walz appeared to be the favorite.
It's changing nothing, and it will be forgotten by Friday. What happens is the vice presidential candidates simply withdraw into the background.
Yet one more toss-up in a presidential race that remains a dead heat. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
A U.S. federal judge has unsealed a court filing featuring new details about the case involving Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. In it, special counsel Jack Smith argues Trump was acting as a private candidate for office on January 6th rather than in his official capacity as president. Among the allegations that a White House staffer heard Trump tell family members that it didn't matter if he won or lost the election, that he said, "You still have to fight like hell," and that he used deceit to target every stage of the electoral process. Ahead, why Canadians can't get Novavax's updated COVID-19 vaccine this season. With cold and flu season ramping up, some Canadians have been traveling south of the border and paying hundreds of dollars to get a specific COVID-19 vaccine. The federal government says it won't order the Novavax vaccine because there isn't enough demand for it. Heidi Petracek explains why.
Barry Hunt snapped photos on his recent road trip to New York State, but it wasn't a vacation, it was vaccination.
The Border Patrol agent said, don't you have vaccines in Canada?
His family paid almost $600 US for COVID-19 vaccines in Buffalo, preferring the latest protein-based Novavax vaccine for fall after what he describes as a bad reaction to an mRNA shot.
It's really the only option out there. And so to not make it available from the federal government is puzzling.
Nuvaxovid, the vaccine's brand name, is approved in Canada, but Ottawa isn't ordering it, citing low demand. Just 3.9% of Canadians are considered fully up to date on COVID vaccinations, with fall booster programs starting soon.
Instead of having 3 options, we have 2, and for a small segment of the community who didn't want to get an mRNA vaccine, it's going to raise barriers.
Barriers compounded by Ottawa's current Novavax contract, which dictates the supply be made in Canada, which the federal government says Novavax hasn't delivered on, even after the feds chipped in $126 million to build this manufacturing center in Montreal. Health Canada says purchasing the company's internationally made vaccine requires ordering more doses than it thinks Canadians want.
I think it's a cop-out.
An advocacy group for immunocompromised Canadians says people should be able to access the vaccine they feel works best for them.
I think that it shows, a glaring gap in Canadian healthcare in terms of options for people to protect themselves.
The Public Health Agency of Canada says provinces can order their own Nuvaxovid doses. Some provinces have already said they don't plan on it. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
There's expected to be high demand for a painting that's going up for auction in Toronto next month. It's a work by Canadian artist Emily Carr, painted in 1912, and it depicts an Indigenous memorial post in a village in BC's Haida Gwaii. The painting was bought a few months ago for just $50 US at a barn sale in the Hamptons. When it goes up for auction, it's expected to fetch between $100,000 and $200,000. A sober Oktoberfest. Next, the popularity of non-alcoholic beer, even at Germany's famous festival. For about 500 years, Germany has had a law about beer production. It can only contain 4 ingredients: malt, hops, yeast, and water. It was based on food safety, but in 2024, there is a new trend taking hold: removing the alcohol. Heather Urix-West looks into the buzz behind non-alcoholic beer.
It's Oktoberfest in Munich, but at this year's annual beer fest, the buzz is not the booze.
If you want to come and drink alcohol through beer, nobody will judge you.
With demand from the sober and sober curious on the rise, the beer halls in Germany are adapting with the times, offering more non-alcoholic brews. Canada's largest Oktoberfest in Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario, seeing this change too.
I think there's probably a number of factors behind it. Overall, we've seen a shift in people's drinking habits, and whether that's for health reasons or for social reasons, for people just wanting to be more aware of their surroundings.
The only thing that gets through the filter is the ethanol and water.
Though it can actually cost more to produce alcohol-free suds, for Calgary's Toolshed Brewery, it's an investment that's paid off.
Our non-alcoholic beer is far and away our fastest growing aspect of our business. It's coming close to matching the sales of our other beer products. It's wild.
As a new generation embraces the festive Bavarian season with a cheers to being hangover-free. Heather Urix-West, Global News, Calgary.
And that is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is the SS Klondike National Historic Site in Whitehorse. We'd love to see your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.